All right. Hello, everyone. How you doing? This is Aaron Maurer, and we are here with another incredible roundtable discussion with some fantastic makers and educators for the second roundtable discussion for our 25 days of making little activity that we have. And for those that are new and maybe have heard of the 25 days of making, you've been making and following along, awesome. We're so glad to have you here. And for those that are like, what in the world is this 25 days of making? We'll put a link here in the comments here in just a second. But it is, think of it like an advent calendar where every day, counting down to winter break, to our own sanity and peace of mind, we have makers from all over the world sharing their time, energy, and creative powers, sharing a project every day that we can use, not just during this holiday time, but beyond as we move on to second semester of schools and summer and after school programs and activities. So it's a phenomenal opportunity. Lots of amazing people who are working tirelessly in their own jobs and careers and families and everything else, finding time to share something that they're very passionate about. And tonight, I'm joined here by 5 of those dedicated people here to have some conversations with us to talk about all things maker, STEM, computer science, and all the other fun buzzwords, as I like to say. Not all the buzzwords in education are fun, but those are ones that always get me excited. So let's start off with just quick introductions. We were just talking before we went live. I think a lot of us follow one another on Twitter and social media, but we don't actually really truly know who we all are. So this is exciting for us on the call, and hopefully as well as for those of you tuning in live here for the live broadcast. So my name is Aaron Maurer. I am a STEM lead for the Mississippi Bend AEA on the eastern side of Iowa. And my job is to support school districts in STEM and computer science and makerspace. And I do get to cross paths with Samantha. She's a huge supporter of a lot of the stuff in Iowa as well. I spent 14 years in the classroom, and my big passion is purposeful play. So a lot of stuff built around Lego education and Minecraft, anything we can get hands-on learning with kids. So really excited to have this evening to learn with the rest of you. And so I'm going to swing it over to Chuck. And Chuck, why don't you let everybody know who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thanks, Aaron. My name is Chuck Stoffel, and I am the STEM and Makerspace teacher in elementary school in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. We are a K-8 school, and I see all of them in the course of a week. This year is an exception for me because our makerspace is closed because of the pandemic, because we can't share resources or tools. So I volunteered to teach virtually to a 5th grade class, which has been an interesting experience. Yeah, it's kind of it. We'll talk about it later about bringing makerspace into a virtual class, but yeah, so that's what I do.
Awesome. And then we got next here, let's go to Samantha.
Hi, everyone. I am Samantha Dalton. I'm the Director of K-12 Education at NewBoCo. And NewBoCo is a nonprofit based in Cedar Rapids, and we work with teachers all over the state of Iowa. We work with other states. A lot of it is around computer science and integrating things, but our nonprofit has 3 main focuses: entrepreneurship, innovation, and education. And I mainly work in the education space, but weave all the other parts around. I like to have my disclaimer that I come to education from industry. So I don't claim to know it all, but I learn every day from all of the educators and wonderful people like Aaron in our state around us, absorb things. And then I have 2 wonderful youngsters at home that are always pushing the limits and trying to make me more and more comfortable with them tearing things apart. Which is great learning, but not always fun to live within.
I can feel your pain. I have 3 kids at home.
Right
Holy
now.
cow. Yes. Focused work is no longer a thing during the remote work, for sure. Well, thanks again for being with us here tonight. And you were part of the first one, so super excited to have you back and see what new ideas you have for everyone. And so the next up, we've got Denise. Who are you and what do you do?
Hi, my name is Denise Wright. I am a STEM educator in a middle school right now in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Been teaching for about 23 years, have done about 7 years as an online teacher, went back to the classroom because I love STEM making, robotics, astronomy. I volunteer for NASA. I started a community astronomy group here called Grand Strand Astronomers. I have an astronomy group for children called AstroSTEM. I love coding, robotics, I guess pretty much all of it. But right now during the pandemic, I went back to the classroom for 3 years, but now I'm back to online again. So I've been online since August. So I'm excited to be here and learn from all of you, and excited to be involved in the 25 Days of Making.
Yeah, and really excited as we get into some of the conversation later to hear from a lot of you guys' perspectives, because you've been able to kind of, I'm going to say dabble. I know it's more than dabble, but dabble in all these different modes of teaching and learning. And so you have some background that I think will be really helpful for a lot of people who I think, kind of have a grasp on things, but are always looking for something else to kind of help with just their sanity and organization and better ways to increase engagement. So welcome and glad to have you tonight here, Denise. Next up, let's head. You're in the bottom right corner on my screen. I'm not sure if it's that for everybody, but Kathy, who are you and what do you do?
Okay, so my name is Kathy Cesiri, and I am not a classroom teacher. I teach enrichment programs. I go into schools and libraries, and now, of course, I'm teaching online. I was a homeschooler. I homeschooled my own children who are now grown from kindergarten through 12th grade. And it was a totally different experience than what everybody's going through now. We didn't do any online real-time teaching. We used videos and things, but all this online learning is totally new. But the keeping kids learning and creating a environment that is comfortable for them to learn in at home is something that I do try to help parents with today also. And I'm also the author of several books of making topics. I have robotics, and then a whole series of books for Make Magazine, fabric and fiber inventions, and edible inventions, and musical inventions, and paper inventions. So my thing is adding tech and using STEM, science, technology, everything with very simple materials.
Yeah, I love it. And I think I have almost all of your books in my basement makerspace. I call it like the Nerdtorium. And so, you have some fantastic work. For those that haven't seen your work, and definitely well worth your time to check out to see what's available to you. So thanks for joining us tonight, Kathy. Really excited to have you be part of this and share lots of your expertise as well. And then rounding out the panel here for tonight, last but not least, we've got Mike. Mike, so who are you and what do you do?
Hey, Mike Carroll, and I think I have the whole complete Kathy Cesiri collection on my bookshelf too. If I'm missing one, I might have to call on a personal favor. But yeah, big fan, and similar to Kathy, I kind of work with a lot of common materials, and I was an educator in the classroom for 11 years. Now I'm an instructional coach, and when I was always introducing making and trying to help my friends into making, finances was always a barrier. And especially when you take a project that costs a few dollars for one student and then multiply that by 20 or even more. So I really work on trying to find a way that you can teach these ideas, which shouldn't have a price tag with them, but at a low cost way. And my current project with that is Scrappy Circuits. We have a website, scrappycircuits.com, and it's a lot on how you can basically start with a LED tea light, take that apart, and then start binder clipping to pieces of cardboard, connecting those and teaching the basics of invention literacy and making your own projects, but all for around $1 a kid. And it's keeping me busy working on a book for that should be out, I'm hoping early 2021. So we're putting the finishing touches on that, and keeps me busy, that's for sure.
Yeah. And so I'm so glad to have you on this too. It's funny, I was aware of your Scrappy Circuits and your work before I was aware of you, which sometimes I think is how it goes. And it's such a wonderful idea and concept. I remember when I was trying to figure out, I was trying to take the idea of create cheaper versions of Little Bits. I mean, Little Bits are great, but boy, if you don't have a grant in front of you, they're hard to get enough if you work at teaching. So I was trying to use it with plywood and light bulbs, and and then I was like, I still don't think this is going to be much cheaper in the long run, and it's probably more dangerous with glass light bulbs. And then I came across your stuff, and I was just like, well, duh, there it is. So yes, I mean, your work I know is well known. I can at least say in parts of Iowa, because I have shared that work many times, as people are like, I can't do this. Yes, you can. Let's just go scrap the recycle bin and make some magic happen. So really glad to have you a part of the show here tonight as well. So Let's get into our first topic, and I kind of layered this in for those tuning in. We kind of gave them two options for this first rodeo, and I'll just let you guys approach it how you want, and we can just bounce back and forth with ideas and conversations. And so we've kind of two-prong approach, or one-prong, however you want to tackle it. One, because I think this is something that sometimes gets easily overlooked as we think about the maker world. A lot of times we get excited about something we've created, an end product or a finished piece. We're so proud, as we should be. But sometimes we don't always share the journey or kind of the initial stages of where we are. So the first part of this, if you want to tackle it, is what's something you're really excited about right now? What's something you're working on, you're trying to grind through? Maybe it's still in the prototype phases, and it's something that you're able to share. I know some things we can't always share, or maybe it's just a new building technique or something new you've just recently discovered where it just kind of makes you feel like a kid again. So there's that one. Or the second part, or the second option there, is the idea of making. And we know that making hands-on learning is always important, but why is it maybe more important than ever before as we're facing with these remote times, these online times, or hybrid, or who knows what the flavor of the day is depending on our current local situation. So I'll let you guys tackle that, one or the other or both, and we can have some conversation around that, because I think it's, one, build some inspiration for people, but then two, maybe some ideas there as well that we can take away as we're all trying to grapple with a lot of these. And as you guys are introducing yourselves, you've got some experience on a little bit of all these things. Not that you have all the answers, but you have some insights that could definitely help anybody. So I'm going to kick it off with you, Chuck. Let you kick things off here with some thoughts, and then we'll surround this thing and see where it takes us.
Sure. First, before I forget, I'm going to have to blame Mike for having to repurpose an entire bookshelf last year in our makerspace, which has about 200 alligator clips hanging from the top of it, and a whole bunch of new blocks with screws in them with batteries glued to them because of scrappy circuits, but the kids love it anyway. Thanks for all that.
Love it.
It's funny, and I thought about, so most STEM projects get me excited. It doesn't matter if it's high tech, low tech, or moving parts, stationary parts, and normally, I'd have a wall behind me full of stuff, right? But the year has been so crazy. And what's actually gotten me excited this year is, for the first time in a while, I've had a home room, like a set of 30 kids, if you want to call it that, that I can do stuff with. And it's been more of a concept that I'm excited about, where, I can do every single subject with them and bring STEM into it. We're always building and creating, and it's actually taking STEM into their house, which is just the complete ideal goal of my, our makerspaces. If we can get them, doing STEM work at home, and working on projects, that's just the goal of the whole thing. And here, I have this wonderful opportunity to make that happen, and it's actually happening. Where the kids are working on stuff at home, trying to keep in mind that there's very limited resources. So most things involve very, very simple items. There is really no electronics. There's no robotics. There's no wires and batteries and things like that, because not everybody has access to that. But I think it's just it is so cool to watch that happen now with language and science and some social studies, some geography work, some history work. We're bringing STEM into all of it, and creating and building, which I'm preaching to the choir, but that's kind of a goal, right? To incorporate STEM into everything we do. And I'm just super excited that this is actually working, and part of me doesn't want it to end, but part of me wants to go back to our makerspace and, start, building and creating different things. So it's not really limited to just the walls of a makerspace. It needs to travel out to the classrooms. And I think I'm just excited that it's actually happening in my small little virtual world now, where if my 30 kids are a classroom, the STEM work is going into their homes, into their classroom now. So, I think it's successful that way. I just wish we could do it on a bigger scale, so.
Yeah, and so a follow-up question for that, and then we'll make sure we get a chance to hear from the others on some of this ideas too, because I'm sure you have thoughts. So as you're talking about that, an idea of making sure we call it equitable, STEM or hands-on learning, because we know not all kids have all the things at home. What is your thought process trying to design these ideas? Because I think one of the things I see a lot of educators grapple with is they know that concept, right? Like they know that kids don't have unlimited budgets and can't go out and buy all the things. But the hard part is like, so how do I do that? So I'm just curious, like, as you're thinking about that, what is some of your process to still make that happen? Because I think that's the biggest the hurdle is, yeah, I know that, but I don't know actually what to do with a paper towel and a paper clip or whatever it is. So like, how are you thinking through that to kind of make that happen? You said you're making it happen, which is incredible. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts in just terms of your thinking.
Well, I guess sometimes our brains are wired a little differently too in the maker world. But I have my basic supplies, and that I have is some paper, cardboard, straw, skewers, that sort of thing. And those are the things that are always in my mind in terms of we need to make a boat, we need to make this, we need to make something with wheels, we need to make so those I limit myself to those products. In terms of starting with, those are my starting tool or starting materials. And quite honestly, I research as much as I can, because there are some fabulous makers out there that are making some incredible things. And you just come across something, it's like, oh, we could do that, but we don't need to do this, we don't need to do this, we can just use paper, cardboard, scissors, straws, skewers, and some tape, and maybe some glue guns. And I know those are the easy things to get. Toilet paper rolls, paper towel rolls, because they're a consumable that we all have at our houses, right? So that's what I do. I start with the basics and try to work the project so that they can use that. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. It's prototyping and trial and error, and making a whole bunch of things at home that don't work out, and trying it with the kids. But yeah, it is hard. You're right. And unless you've kind of trained yourself a little bit with that mindset, in terms of keeping it minimal, and having the best results with the minimal amount of material, to teach something, it's hard to do, but you just got to jump in and do it. And sometimes you're going to get lots of failures, with lots of successes, and you just can't be afraid of that happening.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, and one thing, if I can,
yeah,
when we think of like inexpensive materials, we usually talk about common materials like toilet paper tubes and so on. And it's also like a really powerful idea to repurpose common items for kids and to show those things that, line their bathroom, that, talk about toilet paper tubes, but like the things that just make up their house and their life, that those things can be used in different ways. And if those common things can be used in different ways, a lot of things, they might have a defined purpose, but those kids can really redefine it. I think that is like a simple but powerful idea that is pretty evident, even if you're just like making a castle out of toilet paper tubes and just having fun like that.
Yeah, I think you hit a good point there too. I was thinking the other day, my daughter was trying to figure out, she needed to make a circle for this thing she was building, and we just traced the lid of a yogurt container, and she just looked at me like that was the most genius idea, and I think she's pretty creative, and I was like, well, it's a circle, and then you could just see her gears turning now, like, well, what if I want a bigger circle, like what else, and all of a sudden she was just kind of like on this world of discovery. And so I think you raise a good point there too, like sometimes we take things for granted that we just assume people see, and when you bring it to their attention, like it just opens up a whole new world, like a yogurt lid, or toilet paper tubes or whatever it might be. There's some people that just haven't seen it that way, and once they do, boy, you just see things in a whole nother way, which can also lead down. We'll put a little asterisk here that it could also lead to you being a hoarder. So you also have to be careful, because not everything you don't need 100 of everything. So.
Well, the third time I trip over a tissue box in my basement, I just throw it out. I'm like, I'll get another one eventually.
Yeah.
Awesome. But I think the next time she opened like the cupboard, she probably looked at every cylinder and was like, all right, that's a medium-sized circle, that's a large circle, that's a small circle, and that's powerful. And that's like a step to even more powerful things, which is wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. Samantha, what do you got? Something new or something you want to piggyback off of what we've shared so far, or where are you at with your journey here?
Yeah, this is leading like perfectly into my little note that I put in when Aaron shared the spreadsheet last week, because I happened to be looking at like the pile of growing boxes in our entryway about this time of year. And a lot of times, like when I do PD with teachers and stuff, we'll build in like the gift of time, because educators don't get enough time to try things out or think through things. And so my is just kind of the gift of time. Like, you don't have to come up with this cool new tech thing, although I love tech. Like I'm much more of like on the programming side than the mechanical engineering side. But sometimes you just have to embrace what you have and what's going on and say, like, the kids are going to play with the boxes. They are going to take something apart that's broken, that needs to be thrown away anyway. And you don't have to come up with like a new direction. And sometimes that inventiveness that they build out of boredom is just what they need and what the adults need, because they need to take a breather. So this time of year, people are probably, stressing towards the end of a semester or towards the winter break or something like that. It's okay. Like, just throw some boxes, throw some, whatever you've got, the toilet paper stuff, the paper clips. And I would say that if you want to give it some constraints, have the students figure out what they can solve and problems they can solve with those. But you can also just give them things to play with, like go old school. Doesn't have to be structured. Doesn't have to have the cool lights and stuff that I love. Like, bring that back at a simpler time. So yeah, that's kind of just where we are. And this is also stemming from like my kids coming off of virtual schooling. They're starting to go back hybrid, that kind of situation, and surviving. We're in Iowa. It's getting cold and snowy, so we can't get outside every day. And it's, that brain break. Me, that's where I am.
But I think again there, you hit on something really important too. I think that permission to let things be open, whether it's as a parent or an educator. And I think we all feel this pressure to have everything so structured and organized and from point A to point B, and everything needs to be perfect at the end. And there's nothing wrong with just going, here's the stuff, figure it out. But that creates stress for a lot of people. They think there needs to be more, and sometimes there doesn't need to be. And so I think just having that stuff out there and going, figure it out, and you got to give them enough, like you said, the gift of time, because sometimes you have to sit and mull in that space of boredom before the ideas come. It don't just pop up magically.
And I think we're in a state still with education. I think we're moving away from it, but it's still so prevalent where it's expected that the teacher is they are the all-knowing, all-seeing dispenser of knowledge. And sometimes, like, have the students draw their own connections. Like, just give them stuff and make them think that there's something there that they don't know about, that you know about. It's like secret. And say, like, hey, here are materials, draw a connection to the story that we just read, or some other concept, and you'll be amazed at what they come up with on their own. And then they have to do that learning, and they have to do that thinking, and it's exercising those different components. And the other thing, the conversation earlier made me think of, that if we do all of the STEM stuff at school and the students don't get it at home, then it becomes a thing that you do at school. It becomes associated with a location or that framework. But if you're having them do things in a different environment, then that does open their eyes to, it's not just this one location that I do these things. I can be inventive at home. I can find things in my own environment. I can see things when I'm playing with friends. And I think that sometimes, just as humans, we put up these barriers that no one intended, but just to simplify the world and be able to internalize them and learn, take things in, all of that you sometimes need to dispel some of those barriers and draw explicit connections. Like, hey, we're doing this in our cool maker space, but you can also do it in reading. You can be creative in other areas. And I think that sometimes we need to push the students and educators to think outside the box, because we get into our norms and our things that we just, our habits. And it's hard. I do that all the time. Then you have to break out of the box, and then you get those aha moments, like using the lids or something else that is someone else's norm. But a student didn't do that because they had these implicit barriers that they put up around themselves.
No, I love that. Yeah, that's a great insight. Thanks for sharing that. I think that's making my gears turn too, about stuff I share and how I help educators in schools cross that, where it's not just a location-based activity and, more of a mindset. So yeah, excellent stuff there. Denise, what do you got? What's brewing in your neck of the woods? New learning, new thoughts, the importance of hands-on learning. What's turning in your brain there?
Everybody has been talking about our students, and I have to admit that I have learned personally a lot from my middle school students, and they have taught me tons of stuff. Before the pandemic, we had a big technology fair, and students from all over our district, about 40,000 students, about 12,000 projects, come into this convention center. And, the students will peg things off of me and say, hey, I'm making this underwater robot, or hey, I'm using artificial intelligence to design a facial recognition system. I'm like, what? What's that? And I learned from my kids. They showed me all these projects. And one student actually really got me into AI. Him and his dad were doing projects at home with the Raspberry Pi, and they showed it to me, and I was totally amazed that it was able to identify my face. They used open computer vision on it. And I was like, hey, that's, I'm that teacher. I'm like, show me, teach me. My students know that about me. I'm totally open to learning from them, as well as try to show them what I know. And, from it, learning from that one student, it turned into a lot for me. I ended up going to received a travel grant where I went to the AI and K-12 symposium. I got to meet people from MIT and Carnegie Mellon that are doing work in artificial intelligence, use online tools like Teachable Machine and Quick Draw. And, I'm learning more and more about AI, and have, been in a couple conferences on it, have presented on it, and actually got a grant from Toshiba this year for $9,000 for my classroom to implement AI projects into the classroom. So I was that teacher that started off with the closet of nothingness. And I learned about grant writing, and I just wrote and wrote and wrote. And I was like, I'm getting this money. And I'm fighting to the fight. And, $30,000 later, I've been successful with that. And I can't wait to see what AI brings in terms of making, designing that robot. We have the robot, that little Cosmo that knows, can identify my face and say, hi, Denise. Well, I'm waiting for kids to be designing that robot and, getting that AI more and more in that maker world, because I think that's going to be integrated in more. Or, asking your robot, Siri, or not Siri, but whatever you name your robot, how should I dress today? What's the temperature out today? All those things are going to be intertwined in making. And I think that's going to be such a big part of our world. So AI is something I'm really passionate about, and I'm learning more about every day. And in this environment, obviously I'm remote, so we're using things like Teachable Machine and Quick Draw and MIT App Inventor that have those AI kind of foundations on the web. So, but yeah, that's what I have going on. So excited.
Just a little bit there. You have just a little bit going on, is what you're going to say.
Yeah.
But I think what you've done, it kind of builds off what Samantha was talking about, and even Chuck, and some of our previous conversations. I mean, and even to tie into, Mitch Resnick's work at MIT of the lifelong learner, you're modeling that being vulnerable to say I don't know and to teach me, I think is changes the whole entire environment of learning. Not just for you, obviously it's had an impact on you, but for kids to realize too that it's okay not to know all the things. And even though I think we know that down internally, it's another thing to openly admit it and to seek help, to find out where, because someone else does. There's power in seeking that out. So I think just lots of powerful things. I think that's one of the biggest mindset barriers for educators is to be able to willingly say, I don't know. Show me. That is hard. That's hard for lots of reasons and variables and pressures, self-imposed or system-imposed. And so the fact that you've been able to do that, you're proof to what happens when you do that. And figure out how to write a grant and figure out how to get it done. So that's awesome. I think it's a really great message.
Some students have knocked me out of the park with what they know, and I have I've taught myself, watching YouTube videos how to use the microbit. I'm probably a few years now into the microbit, but just learning how to use one for the first time. I mean, there's just so many resources out there to get us there. You just have to be willing to try, I guess, and be open to it all. So, or how you get there.
Absolutely. And I think this kind of segues right into Kathy. And so as we were kind of doing some prep work for the show, Kathy was talking a little bit about some of the things that she's trying to learn and figure out. And so I think it fits right into to the same kind of conversation line here. So Kathy, what are you working on? What excites you? What do you got brewing? I can see lots of stuff there in the background, and I know you're always cooking up something. So what's on your burner here?
Yeah, I don't even, everybody brought up so many topics. I got a whole list here of like 40 different things, like 40 different directions I could go in. Just the idea about teachers needing to show that they, admit that they don't know everything and model having to learn things. So my background was as a journalist, and I'm homeschooling my kids and also writing articles for print and online at the same time. So when my kids got interested in robotics, I went and found people that were writing books about robots for kids, people that had PhDs in robotics, and I interviewed them. And that's how I started learning. But I'm modeling for my kids. You don't know something, you go and find an expert and you get them to explain it to you, and bring it down to a level that anybody can understand. And that's, pretty much what I do with my books. And when I do professional development is show people who don't have any background in making or technology at all that you can learn enough to teach it to kids to have a program with kids where everybody's going to learn together. So I think it's great that teachers are embracing that idea. So my little menorah pillow we were talking about, this was the first microcontroller device that I used to code in MakeCode. And MakeCode is a free online programming language from Microsoft. It's based upon Scratch from MIT. So it's drag and drop, and it's very simple. And from going to maker fairs and things, I was meeting all these people. And so the woman that developed this is a Chibitronics Chibi chip. It's by Ji Shi, who got her PhD at MIT Media Lab, and now I believe she's a professor in Japan. And so this was actually developed to work with paper circuits, but I was using it with fabric. So it's just clipped onto some felt, and then the circuits are actually made with conductive tape, and then she's got little circuit stickers that have conductive glue on the back, and you just kind of stick it on there, and then I just covered everything in felt. So this was like my very first programming project, and then I just keep iterating and developing it. And I've got a link to this project on my page on the 25 Days of Making, but I've then since gone on to using a lot of Adafruit products and doing a lot more with MakeCode. And right now I'm kind of going back and forth at the same time. I'm doing a lot of stuff where I'm taking LED strands from the dollar store and cutting off the battery pack and attaching it to an Adafruit Gemma or Circuit Playground Express just by stripping the wires and just curling it around the little holes that they have. And then programming that in MakeCode. So you can make a little dollar store LED strip of lights flash and dim and make your own patterns. So taking, the really cheap stuff and then adding the MakeCode to it. I steal ideas from Scrappy Circuits all the time. Anything made out of stuff from the dollar store. And one of the others, so talking about having to teach online. So right after everything shut down, I had heard from a lot of libraries where normally I would be going and, doing a summer program and bringing all my bags of stuff and handing every kid, all of the materials they needed. I had all these libraries saying, we want to still do your robotics program, but it has to be geared down for kids that may have nothing. We don't, we are not able to bring them any materials at this point. And so you have to assume that they have nothing. So I took some of even my very simple projects, like make a robot that can walk down a ramp, but it had 5 different kinds of very simple things, bamboo skewer from the supermarket and wooden beads and whatever. And I managed to find a version that did the same thing that I could explain in the same way that was just made out of an index card. So an index card and a pen and scissors. So, and still be able to use it to teach the same concept of robotics of effectors and whatever my topic was for that day. So it was just, that's been the thing that's been exciting me during this time is finding ways to bring even these simple projects down to a level that anybody could find stuff. I did a lot of projects with from my Fabric and Fiber Inventions book or adapted from that, just using old t-shirts, figuring everybody's going to have an old t-shirt that they can cut up and make into a tote bag and make into make it into yarn that you can then make a weaving out of with a cardboard loom, So really, it's amazing what you can do with virtually nothing. And this whole idea of being able to look around and see what you've got and start building with it, it just, ties into all these subjects that everybody's already brought up. One thing I will mention also is I gave a talk at the Empire State Maker Fair that is on YouTube, where I just gave a really quick demonstration of all the projects that I had done over the summer. So if anybody, and it was a talk for teachers, so if anybody wants to look that up, I don't have the link, but I can give that to Erin to post later. But it's just to give teachers ideas of what you can do so that your kids can be making at home, even if you're not able to give them any materials.
No, that's awesome. Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, there's lots of good things. I was even just making a note for me, like to go back. I've been trying to figure out a cheap way to add lights. I've been trying to build my own Lego winter village, but not with like set kits, like my own kits. And so I'm trying to figure out a way to light them up. I know you can buy the lights, but I'm like, again, taking that scrappy circuit concept, and now you're talking about the dollar, like cutting off. I didn't even think about that, and I'm going, that's it.
10 LEDs for $1, and it comes with the batteries.
Yeah, it just I'm sitting there going, duh, geez, come on, Aaron, think of this. Let's go figure this stuff out, big guy. So I'm glad you shared because I'm going to dollar store tomorrow, so I appreciate it.
And a lot of that is seasonal, so you got to stock up on those LED lights for the whole year.
There we go. Yep,
season.
What's another swipe with a credit card? It's all good.
Are you encouraging that hoarding now?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So Mike, what do you guys? I mean, I know we keep referencing a lot of your scrappy circuit stuff. So what are you working on? What are you excited about? What's brewing in your neck of the woods here?
Yeah, well, so which is a huge honor, so thank you. And one of the things I wanted to mention too, we talked a lot about being vulnerable, and I think you don't even have to wait till you don't know something to be vulnerable. You can really, if somebody's telling you something and you know about it, you can play dumb. You can play the clown, and wait, this does that, and they correct you, and I think not waiting for the opportunity to be outsmarted by a kid to be vulnerable. I think that's something that we should, as educators, practice all the time. And I would take it to the 10th degree with my third graders and act like I couldn't do simple addition, and they'd be like, "Oh, Mr. Carroll, what are you doing?" and then correct me, and we had fun with it. But I think that's a good practice for educators. And the thing that I'm really the most stoked about right now is just seeing a lot of, we have verbal language, but I think a lot of people are really learning how to creatively put that into videos right now, which is, by most inventions, necessity is the mother of invention. It's one of the only forms of distant communication right now. But students and adults are really kind of coming up with creative ways of sharing through video. And I think also, and this is kind of the hat I wear more, I think because I have to do it all the time, I'm more comfortable with it. Because I was always the person who's I'd start a YouTube channel and I'd work for way, way, way too long on a video and be too nitpicky about it, to the point where it wasn't that good in the end, and it cost me way too much personal time to see any reward there. So I think kind of more, on my end, more comfort with hitting record and going. And if I stutter and I look weird and my lighting's bad. It's like, all right, yeah, that's the video. That's what it was. And I'm going to do another one the next time and we'll keep moving. So that's what I'm really excited about, the skill set we're learning now, in a world where it's not necessary and it's just for fun.
Yeah, you hit a key piece, and I was having this conversation with my wife, who's also an educator, and you're talking about, like, we call it like the one button record. Like, you're gonna hit record once and you're done. And something that we've talked about, and I'm sure there's probably a better terminology for it, is the idea, like, what it does is it helps our students remember that we're human. Mm-hmm. There's so much out there in media that is so polished and filtered and perfect, and I mean all the things, when that's a rabbit hole for a whole nother conversation. And I think there's a real important piece of, not having all the fancy tech. And if you have it and you're good with it, that's power to you. I'm not knocking that for those that are really crafty in that, but there's something about just, here's who I am in the flesh. Here's what we're going to do. This is me, let's roll. And I think that does bring down the comfort and the peace of mind for people that we're trying to reach in some of that. Not all places. There's a time and place for a very polished product too, but I think some of that day-to-day teaching and learning and engagement, there's nothing wrong with just being just normal, And so I think that's a really important piece for a lot of people. We're trying to move online is new, and they think it has to be perfect every single time. And they're spending 5 hours for a 4-minute video that doesn't need to be that much time dedicated to it.
Mm-hmm.
One thing
north of 5 for me, but yeah.
One thing that Mike made me think of is a realization I came to, I don't know, like a year or two ago, and based on somebody else's thought. But when you're making a prototype, and I'm going to be photographing it, or I'm going to be bringing it to students to show them for a class or something, and I'm trying to make it look like, like that super polished, YouTube ready, whatever. And I'm realizing if I leave it kind of crappy the way that it looked, when I first got it working, I can just give that to students and they're going to see, what a rough prototype looks like, but also they're going to say, I could do something better. Like, I don't want to insult her to her face, but I'm thinking, why should I make it, super pretty? Which might be intimidating to some. I'm just going to show them, here's my version and it works. Now you improve it. And I actually did bring it in and say, I got it kind of working, but this thing isn't, perfect. What do you think I could do? Give me some suggestions for how I could improve this part and stuff like that. So now that's like my, keeping myself from getting crazy and saying, I'm just going to bring it up to a level where they can understand what I'm trying to get at, and then not make it perfect and let them build on that.
No, yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, so many good ideas. I'm trying to capture all these, and for those listening in or watching the recording, we'll have all this stuff captured, kind of these nuggets, as well as all the links in the comments and things like that we've all shared. And definitely, I think this conversation, even these 40 minutes, of definitely going to put me down about 10 hours of just clicking and exploring and reading and diving in and rethinking some of my approaches to how I do stuff too. You guys are hitting some really great ideas. It's good for me as a reminder to, like, put some of this stuff back to the forefront, as we continue to try to create and support one another, regardless of that students or adults or educators or whoever it is that we're trying to serve. And so absolutely fantastic stuff there. So we've got about 15 minutes or so. And so the other part of this was just to share some resources or tools or links, or just some of the favorite things you've got that you've been maybe using recently, or maybe it's your go-to place for us to share out. And I'll do my best to try to capture those and throw them in the comments. But again, I'll have all this in a follow-up post on the 25 Days of Making website and the blog, all captured in a wakelet for people to go back and explore. So if you can't catch it and keep up with all the comments, I will keep it all organized for you. But as we dive through here, this proved to me another important thing. I know we all love getting links and resources, and the first roundtable, there were some places and people and things I was like, this is so awesome. And I was so glad to hear, because we kind of get our own little, echo chamber, I kind of click on the same 5 or 6 things. And while it's great, I was like, my eyes were so much more wide open after our last call. So I just wanted to give us all an opportunity to kind of share some things here, because I know it's going to happen again. I was already clicking on some stuff as we were planning, and I know maybe other ideas have popped up since then. So, Chuck, I'm going to throw it back to you if you've got anything to start here. Is there anything that is in your wheelhouse in terms of tools or websites or books or anything like that that you think would be helpful for those checking out the live stream tonight?
Well, it's a different situation now. If you asked me this question a year ago, I'd have a completely different answer.
Right.
And you know what? It's interesting because I still keep going back to a couple of that I like a lot, and one is Instructables. I've always liked that. That's a great site, good instructions. All different skill levels, that sort of thing. But the one that I'm going to now, and the only reason I'm going to it now more often, well, actually, because I'm the Lego robotics coach at our school as well. So I mean, I love Lego EV3s and Spike Primes and all that. But because of the amount of tech that we don't have in our school, we don't always get time on devices. But now, since we're online, everyone has a device, so we are on Scratch all the time now, because they never get an opportunity to learn how to do it because you never have time. You only if you have 5 or 6 devices, you got to share amongst 25, 30 kids that are in your makerspace. But now I have 30 kids. They all have a device. We can get something done, and they're using it to create stories. They're using it to make their own games, make Space Invaders, to learn lessons and that sort of thing. They're bringing everything to life with coding, and I just, I'm crying. It's so cool. And also recruiting kids for Lego robotics once we get back to going again, see who the kids are that really are good at coding. And it's just I find it that I keep going back to that all the time. I mean, sure, there's a bunch of different websites that we use just for different lessons and whatnot, but that's it. And the other odd thing I have tool, which I would have never thought of a year ago at all, because I'm doing virtual teaching, is my document camera. I have this thing on 10 times a day, just showing close-ups of what's going on, how to make things, how to do things. And now I realize that when we go back to a classroom, this thing will be awesome because I can plug it into my projector and put it on the screen, on the big screen through HDMI cable. And when I'm showing kids how to do things, I can do the smallest detail and they will still be able to see it. So, like a year ago, I would have thought, okay, well, that's boring. Why would I even want to talk about document cameras, right? But now all of a sudden, it's better than sliced bread. It honestly is. It's not cheap for a good one, but man, I have this thing going all the time. So it's an odd thing to to talk about, but I'm a firm believer in it now for sure.
Yeah, and I think you hit on a key point. I mean, sometimes it's the stuff that maybe has been sitting around in our space all the time, and we just kind of glossed over it, or and as change of needs and expectations, the ebb and flow of life and education. Also, now the document camera all of a sudden takes on a whole different set of appreciation and use. When we don't always have all the things that maybe we're normally used to. And
but the tech of it has changed, though. You can take pictures and videos with it, post them, stream them. So it's an incredible tool now.
Yeah. And I'll throw this here in the comment as well, too, just as I don't know if you guys follow another incredible maker, Stu Lowe, and he was sharing a week ago, and I'm sure you've seen this, where he uses the free OBS software, but he has a Makey set up to change all his cameras, just using the Makey thing. So I'll put it in the comments for people who haven't seen it. It's just another way of if you've got a Makey laying around, you can create a pretty impressive camera switching Zoom call session if you wanted to. And if you have this, a lot of us have these kind of things just dinking around that we could all of a sudden put to productive use. So I think you hit on some good ideas there, and some good ideas there. So good stuff. Thanks for sharing that, Chuck. Samantha, what do you got?
Yeah, so there are about a 1,000,001 STEM in a box and science kit things. So I am just sharing one that we've used that I like. It's called JewelBots. It's a small startup. And they just have a few options there, but I also like that they have their list on there. And the one that we have at our house, I think it's the Hello World. I think that's what it's called on there. But we were talking about Adafruit. I love Adafruit. I always end up with a cart that is way too full. And I think it can also be overwhelming, like in a good way, but also maybe intimidating for people starting. And so like I like the Hello World one because it involves crafts. It has the fun lights, and it has programming. We've got a 6 and 9-year-old, and they both have one, and they're able to do it. And they can make different things, so they can take it apart, make something else. Maybe we'll do a menorah pillow after this and that. But just something that's kind of fun, hands-on, and you can find lots of different things like that. But fun one to share. And then the other one I had on there, and I have not heard anyone say this. So if you guys know the site, Babros, I don't know. It's a competition challenge site, like computational thinking. So think like puzzles, logic puzzles, problems, that kind of stuff. And they have different age groups for different puzzles. You can see all of like the past years. So you can have students do the past year challenges, and they can see the answers right away and say why the answers. Even if they got it right, they might learn something a little bit deeper. But then there's also a challenge, I think usually in the fall. I think it's passed already. But I learned from some colleagues that there are many different countries that run this challenge, and they have different puzzles. And I've heard that there are some countries that have like maybe more fun puzzles than the US one. I haven't explored too much, but with the joy of Google Translate, you can go to a different country's site and you can see their puzzles. So it's kind of like a huge pile of options there. And I tested out on my kids again as a weekend cold indoor activity. And also they're kind of like my litmus test on should I share this or not. And both of them like ended up doing like other age groups and trying other things. And I could even see you like printing things off, or you could do them, there's certain ones that you could have them do at home and like map out stuff. So really cool ideas there that I'm planning on digging more into as the winter months kind of extend on.
No, awesome. Yeah, those are two I have not heard of, and I think those are great, especially as teachers are looking for sometimes just those quick little activities, but still try to connect to the learning and standards. I think there's definitely some nuggets there that can definitely be used. So good stuff. Thanks for sharing that as well. Denise, what do you have that could be helpful for educators?
Sure. As I said, I'm a big astronomy geek as well. And back a few months ago, we sent Mars Perseverance rover. It's on its way to Mars as we speak. And it's due to land February the 18th on the surface of Mars. So starting in January, NASA is going to have a 5-week program where, we're getting ready for that landing. And there's a whole bunch of STEM that can be created around that Mars Perseverance rover. You could get those EV3 robots. One of the part of the mission is for actually the rover to do some drilling on the surface and send a sample back. So you could have students actually code the EV3 robot to go out a certain number of feet, attach an arm attachment on it, see if it could actually, hit that Play-Doh or something, just similar to what the Mars rover would be doing, and then retrieving that sample. Also underneath the robot, we have the very first drone that will be flying on another planet called Ingenuity. It's going to be a tricopter, not a quadcopter, which I found very interesting. It has 3 propellers, and it's underneath the belly of the robot. And it's supposed to fly out from underneath the robot and fly around and get that view of drone-like view of Mars. So, having kids maybe make a helicopter model out of paper in the classroom and, bring all that STEM into play. So that's a lot of exciting stuff going on. It's like a 5-week program. They're going to have NASA scientists on board, and they really want to get students involved. I mean, that's one thing about NASA. They are so into STEM and kids because they realize that they are the future generation. And being involved with the volunteering for them, I'm a solar system ambassador. I mean, I can't tell you like how many NASA stickers I've gotten, and posters. My kids go nuts, and I use them sometimes for prizes and things like that in the classroom. But they love it all, and so do I, obviously. And definitely check out that Mars challenge. And it's going to be definitely some excitement for the new year to see that rover land and do some great science on that on Mars.
Yeah. And
Learn a
I mean,
whole lot
NASA has
more.
so many
So,
incredible things. I was trying to develop a Lego project where we were going to try to build a Mars habitat using Lego, but based off what we know on Earth. It helped them kind of see like how much of as you know, NASA continues to explore beyond Earth, how much we actually use here for our own day-to-day living as a result of their experiments and prototypes and things that they discover. So yeah, I was just scrolling through this looks absolutely incredible. And so I definitely need to sign up for myself or either that or find a classroom to join and be part of. So
yeah, it's like you just sign up and it's a 5-week program. You'll get a newsletter and also be hooked up with a weekly webinar with the scientists and just getting kids prepared for that landing and that excitement that's going to come along with it. I'm really excited. So.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, great resource. Thanks for sharing that, Denise. Kathy, what do you have up your sleeve here to share with the world here tonight?
Well, first of all, I was going to say, Denise, I used NASA website and you know, teacher and student stuff that they had on their website all the time when I was homeschooling, and it's just such a great resource. I have a video of one of my kids when he was really little making the little, back when there used to be film canisters, you know, putting the Alka-Seltzer and vinegar.
Yeah. I'm the lady who still keeps those.
Yeah. I need to have a talk with Mike someday about all the stuff that I have built all my projects around that you can't get anymore. Plastic straws are going to disappear. You know, film canisters are gone. CDs are going to be gone. That's a whole other talk. We need to have some time about how do you keep finding new stuff when all the garbage that you recycled is you know, thankfully disappearing, but now I don't have my stuff. So I don't know. I just, you know, I'll do some shameless self-promotion, I guess. The Adafruit site has a whole Learn section, and I've got maybe a dozen projects on there. And, you know, anybody who wants to start using some of the Adafruit products or even go to their more low-end, you know, things like LED lights, they have their own LED lights for sale, things like that. Go look for my name because I will have the projects where I don't assume that you know anything. And I will assume that you have no tools. And, you know, even some projects that I've done for them, I did one right at the beginning of the shutdown where I was saying, if, you know, when they weren't shipping stuff out because they were making PPE and stuff like that, saying, you may not be able to get the parts you need right now. So this is where to go in your kitchen drawer and find stuff that you can use to make that. So, but you know, it's a great place for inspiration too. I take a lot of their projects that are above my level and then figure out how I can make a version that I, you know, that works for me, that's at my level. So great for inspiration. Also, I think you mentioned last time in your last talk, the Make Project site, where a lot of teachers and classrooms are starting to put projects on there. And I'm probably going to try to, so I'm teaching classes for Maker Campus and Maker Camp. And I'm going to start putting some of my projects online there too, so that you can see the kind of stuff that I've been doing. And a lot of, you know, of makers from this group and others are on there as well. And I don't know, it's just, there's so much stuff out there. Just maker Twitter. Go find somebody like me or Mike or somebody who's on Twitter and just follow everybody that they follow. And, you know, see who they retweet because so much interesting stuff.
Well, I definitely think that's an important tip there. Sometimes it's going to your people. I think we forget that, you know, we find the people we really like, and then, you know, sometimes the best gift is right there. Who are they following? I think we forget that little step of like, who else do I find? Well, find those people you like. And so, and Make and the Maker Campus, all that stuff just sounds absolutely incredible. That was new to me in the last roundtable as people were talking about that. Not the Maker Project site, but the Maker Campus thing sounds wonderful as well. So yeah, I look forward to seeing your work on there, and I definitely will get that link posted in here too, so people can see that because it looks like just another wonderful opportunity to learn from some incredible people. So thanks for sharing those, Kathy. And then Mike, what do you have here? We've got a few minutes left. I don't want to rush you. I want to make sure you've got time here. So what are some of your favorite tools, websites, links, all that jazz?
It's funny. I thought long and hard about this, and I'm gonna have to go with a classic, and I have it right here. It wasn't even planned, but I love my makey, and I have a 6-year-old daughter at home, and we were bored this weekend, and she's like, "How about the makey, Dad?" And I was like, "Oh, like if I didn't already love you so much, like I do now." And we had so much fun. And it's something I love, and it's so cool to like see my daughter love it and get into it and realize like the cool things she could do with it. And yeah, and Kathy did some maker camp the summer sessions, and I did some with Chris Connors, who I do Scrappy Circuits with, and we did a lot of like our Scrappy Circuit switches and how they could work with makeys and microbits. And Chris made a game, like a carnival game that basically muted and unmuted the Zoom, which I thought was a lot of fun. So he'd be in the middle of explaining it, and he'd go mute, and we're like, "Oh, he must have scored." Okay, good. So you can have a lot of fun with the makey, especially like you were saying with Stu Lowe, like with the new world that we live in on computers. You can control the computer for makey, so you can come up with some creative ways to interact that way. So it's a classic,
Yeah,
but
and
I
I think
love it.
but it does serve as another reminder, and it came up in the last roundtable, and I think it's worth mentioning here again too. Is we do live in a world where we're always constantly looking for the latest, greatest, the newest, shiniest object, toy, tool, tech, and while there is great stuff to come from that as things continue to evolve, we were talking, Denise was talking about AI, we're talking about going to Mars. Yeah, like yes, there is constant innovation and new ideas, and some of that is fantastic, but some of the classic ideas are just as powerful. Like learning how to like whittle wood. Not that you're going to put knives magically in a kid's hands, or a makey, or just, sometimes the classics have just as much value and worth as the latest, greatest thing. So I think it's important not to just put those aside because, yeah, you've had that for a while. There is that, constantly coming back to that. And I have my oldest daughter's a middle schooler, and, I'm sitting there looking at her fashion trends, and I'm like, that was cool when I was a kid, and you think you're fresh, but then I go back and my parents are like, you were the same way. You used to wear the stuff, so it all comes through. So I think it definitely raises a really good point here. And so this has been fantastic. I really thoroughly appreciate all of you taking time to join this call. Those that have watched either the live stream or the recording, if you have any other further questions or comments, make sure you head to the 25 Days of Making on our Maker page. You can find all of these outstanding folks, their contact information to reach out and learn more and see all their work that they have. They got all their links and emails and all their social media profiles there on the page. And I just want to personally thank all of you for squeezing out an hour of your busy lives. A lot of you, this is your downtime or your time away from a lot of the work, and even though we're passionate about it, it is good to take some time and have a good space. But truly thankful that you're willing to share some of your insights and ideas with the rest of the world when we can all take whatever we can get. So I will leave this last little thing. I didn't share an idea. I feel like I feel selfish. I'm just stealing all your ideas and not contributing anything. So I will put in, this is actually my favorite podcast. I'm a podcast junkie. And this is Cool Tools. This has gotten me into a lot of problems because I buy about everything on here. Essentially what it is, it's Kevin Kelly and Mark, I'm drawing a blank on his last name, starts with an F. Anyways, you can click the link and see it. But they interview makers, builders, experts, people, and they share their favorite tools that they use. And every day people talk about stuff, I'm like, ooh, I think I need that tool. And I end up buying it. It's just fantastic. So if you want to just learn more about all the things you didn't think you needed and realized you do, definitely well worth it. And the podcasts are like 20 minutes, so it doesn't take a whole big chunk of your day. So with that being said, thank you. You guys are amazing. And thanks for all that you do. And thanks for taking time to be with us tonight.
Thank you.